Welcome to Rauta Underground Trio. This time it's a tape special. Now, not all of these are technically speaking demos, but they are tape releases, so they are very comparable to one another in that sense. Once again, quickly through an alphabetical order, all of these, and then from worst to best according to my own opinion. But mind you, this time there is very little difference in terms of quality. So technically speaking, I could be basically putting them in any order I wanted without taking too much worry about them comparability. But let's make it so that I first introduce them in alphabetical order, like always. First, demo tape from Anthorn. This is a compilation tape featuring their band's only releases so far. 2 demos, 1 tape. Then from Czechia, we have Pohoron, and this is People of the Goat. 2 songs, 1 demo, and so far, I think the only one. But sorry, not Czechia, but Ukraine. I was confusing it with this one. And to be honest, 2 of these 3 I actually unwrapped just before this one. Why? My tape player is busted, so I was listening to these on Bandcamp and YouTube. Last but not least, Swordsman. This is from Czechia, and this is technically speaking the debut album. Curious enough, the only physical format for this debut album is this tape. Otherwise, it's just digital copies. So, kind of a curious set in that sense. Now, from worst to best. First, we go to Ukraine with this one demo band, Pohoron, and People of the Goat is the name of the release. This one is very peculiar. There's very little information. This was around 2022, so we can safely assume that is also the founding year for this given band. There is not much to be said with this given tape. As you can see, while it is a pro tape in this sense, the J-card is very minimal. You see only the lineup right there, and then these 2 songs, and that's pretty much of it. What can you really expect from this is very basic, bare-boned black death metal. Yes, fast-paced, yes, kind of a borderline war metal in so many ways. You have that blackened feeling there, but mostly in a death metal sense. But then again, calling it pure death metal would be a little misleading. Now, in terms of production, it's not exactly mushy, but it's far away from anything powerful, solid, big-ass production. So everything here is rather very basic. Something that it's very easy to listen and say, it's fine. But then again, you probably won't be talking about this in 10 years' time and saying, it's this cult band, it's very good and all, forgotten legends. More like the typical demo-level band, and so many bands do it for the first time before they actually get better in terms of songwriting, production, and everything. But I don't know, anything since 2022 hasn't been heard from this guy, and who knows, maybe Ukrainian war is part to be blamed. Then, in 1999 in Finland, there was this band called Anthorn. According to Metal Archives, the band actually split up the same year, so there is nothing about that. Comes with a very nice tape released by Korpituli Recordings Productions, I think, which is specialized in doing nice-looking pro tapes of various releases. I mean, they even included our full album and demos on tapes, so I'm really proud of what they do. They always do good quality, and as you can see, the same thing is here. Now, this is a curious band because, to be honest, even though it's a Finnish band, I never got to hear it back in the day, so this was my first time listening to this one, and what can I say is kind of a shame they didn't really keep going. While this is nothing fundamentally different, new, or anything like that, very typical from the 90s black metal, this could have been a promising act if they only kept going. I would say these are roughly after the early steps of Emperor, especially the debut album and a little bit before that. But once again, you have the typical 2 demos there, which are probably released back to back. They were released, after all, the same year, and now this compilation tape has them both. Nothing here is exactly revolutionary, mind-changing, or anything like that, but the black metal flows quite nicely. I mean, after all, we're talking about the 1990s black metal, nothing of more modern. And as such, much like with that Pohoron, you're kind of bound to kind of excuse that the production isn't anything better than that. If only these were kind of re-recorded with better production and I may be better understanding how the songs might want to sound like, this could be a lot better. Now this is more like a curiosity rather than something you have to listen to. And then finally, barely, the best of the pile comes from Czechia, Swordsman. Quite interesting choice for a black metal band, because I was thinking his Swordsman could really fit some kind of a traditional power metal, heavy metal. But this is black metal. And once again, this is Pro Tape, and now with a little bit bigger J card than those previous one. After all, this features lyrics too, so it is worth buying if you like the music. Metal Archives considers this as black metal punk. Now, honestly, with this debut album Tape, I really don't get that punk vibe too much. Sure, it's crude, it's raw, kind of a green black metal, very, very basic in the 1990s sense, but a little bit more modern than that. Has quite nice flow to it. Some basic parts are really, really nicely done and all that stuff, but much with those other tapes, yes, it's a little bit like having flu, meaning the production isn't really that great. I mean, after all, this kind of stuff would really benefit a better production. But there is a certain charm to the rawness and grimness of this Kimen tape. So, in a way, this is something like, yeah, it fits the bill. But given it's a first album rather than a demo, yeah, it sounds like more like a demo disguised as a debut album. Something that has happened to many, many bands out there, especially back in the 90s when certain, releases got picked up by a label and say, hey, this is actually so good, we want to do it as a full album. And then in hindsight, a lot of those debut albums end up sounding like, yeah, it should have been a demo. Rather a good demo than mediocrity as an album, if you know what I mean. But this is a little bit better than pure mediocrity. So in that sense, I would say this is the winner of the pile. But like I said, none of these, despite the attempt to do something interesting, are not exactly great in their own game. Like I said, they are nothing bad, but, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you in the comments while listening to this would say all of them are worthwhile skipping. Because in a way, it's true. If you only head for quality, this is not the kind of stuff you necessarily need. But for collectors and those who want a little bit more underground and obscure, these are the kind of bands you might keep checking. So here they are, and links are provided in the description box. So give it a go, give it a listen, and hope you like some of them. Off you go. See you soon with more underground reviews coming your way.